Down a long, winding country dirt road, in the middle of what feels like nowhere, is an old, eerily quiet graveyard, hidden deep in the woods, underneath some graceful old oak trees that are dripping in Spanish moss. It's a serene, peaceful setting and resting place for those buried on its grounds, isolated and private, away from chaos and the noise of city life and people coming and going. Or is it? It's called Consolation Cemetery, and it exists now in what was once a thriving pioneer community in Okie Streak in Butler County, Alabama. For many years, there was an old, white, wooden, one-room church on the site, along with the adjoining cemetery. The cemetery was established sometime in the mid-1800s, around the time of the Civil War. Some of the tombstones in the cemetery are unique works of art, but some are crumbling into dust amid the overgrown weeds and grasses. The years of wind and rain have left a lasting impact on the stones. The adjoining church never had electrical power running to it, and after the church closed its doors, the site became a magnet for teenagers and amateur ghost hunters to explore. There's just something about an old country church and graveyard nestled under moss-covered trees deep in the woods that stirs the imagination. Local legend has it that the place is haunted. For several years, kids used the place as a hangout at night, and vandalism became a problem, especially for the old country church. Windows were broken out, and the doors were taken off. The pews were stolen or burned, and someone even painted a pentagram on the floor in the church. It's believed that some of the teenagers used Ouija boards in the church and other means to try and contact the spirits. Who knows what portals they might have opened or what evil they might have conjured up and let loose in the area. Unfortunately, on the night of February the 16th, 2015, the church itself was burned to the ground. Maybe it was an accident from kids building fires or burning candles, or maybe not. According to news reports at the time, foul play was suspected. Through the years, there have been many haunting tales of ghostly apparitions and spooky happenings associated with the area. There are tales of a pack of hellhounds with red eyes that roam the grounds. Some even claim to have been chased out of the cemetery by the spectral canines. Before the church was burned down, it was said by many that there were banshees heard screaming and wailing in the woods, and if you happened to be inside the church in a group that heard them, then it was an omen, and one of you would surely die soon. It's even rumored that the sounds of the banshees is the reason the church finally closed its doors to active church gatherings years before it was burned down. The cemetery itself has over 100 graves. Some of the tombstones are unmarked or unreadable due to the ravages of time. Nature has set about reclaiming some of the graves. There are entire family plots and also the lonely single graves. Some of the graves are marked only by river and granite rocks dug up from the farmers' fields and are presumed to possibly be the final resting place of slaves. The earliest marked grave and burial in the cemetery took place in 1857 and was an Elizabeth Huggins Josie, who passed away at age 34 years, having a husband and 4 little children leaving behind to carry on without her. The newest and last burial on the grounds is that of Ruby Porter Cross, buried in 1985, laid to rest beside her husband that had preceded her in death many years before. All have their tombstones facing towards the east, which is the direction the Lord will come back one day to take them home. There are several Civil War soldiers buried in the cemetery. There have been witnesses claiming to have heard the sounds of soldiers marching, and some claim to have actually seen an apparition of a soldier strolling slowly through the cemetery and just disappearing behind a tree. Also, there is a country doctor buried in its grounds in a family plot surrounded by an old, intricate wrought iron fence. He probably delivered most, if not all, of the babies and children buried in the cemetery. Sadly, there are too many of these infants and small children's graves, some families having lost several little ones. These pioneer country people lived through some really tough times. Medicine wasn't what it is today. One of the ghostly tales was that there was a little boy playing with a ball, and if he rolled it to you and you rolled it back to him, then you would soon die. A little ghost girl has often been seen skipping up the path by the cemetery and then disappearing. Another story was that if you went into the outhouse, situated behind where the church once stood, if you shut the door behind you, it would lock itself, and you couldn't get out until someone let you out from the outside, even though there was no way to lock the door from either side. And one of the final tales that I know of was that of a 1964 black Ford pickup truck with a ghost rider that would rev its motor and get behind your vehicle and chase you out if you stayed too long on the night of a full moon. It was said that if the truck caught up with you, then you and everyone in your vehicle would soon die. A lot of amateur ghost hunters claim to have taken pictures at night with ghostly orbs of light and recorded disembodied voices on their recorders. But now that the church has burned down, and in its place is just a pile of burnt rubble, who knows what or if any ghosts are still hanging around. In the daylight hours, with the sun shining and the birds singing, the cemetery is just a beautiful, peaceful resting place for those interred in its grounds, as it should be. These people deserve to rest in peace. Without the church no longer an attraction on the premises, I imagine there are a lot less visitations from the teenagers and seekers of ghostly apparitions. So visit if you must, but go in the daylight hours, paying special consideration and respect to the many souls buried there and to any living family members left. But I'd advise you not to overstay your welcome, because if you dare to linger too long after dark, with the mist and the moonlight glowing on the tombstones amid the moss-covered trees, who knows what you might encounter. I wouldn't take any chances if I were you. It could be that if there are any spirits still present on the site, it might be that they didn't take too kindly to the burning of their sacred sanctuary. Or what if maybe the teenagers or ghost hunters invited something into this world that you really aren't prepared to deal with? Something way more sinister and evil. I don't know about you, but I, for one, wouldn't want to stick around and find out.